Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving headfirst into something really central to, well, all of us, our relationships.
That's right.
We're going to unpack a really fascinating conversation looking at all these intricate connections we make. You know, from the dialogue with ourselves all the way out to the big social networks we're part of.
It's a huge topic.
It is. Think of this as maybe your shortcut to understanding some of those unspoken rules, the dynamics that shape how we connect. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Things like, finding inner peace, societal pressures, modern challenges in connecting. It's all in there.
Absolutely. So where do we start?
Well, let's jump right in. The art and science of human connection.
Okay. So one of the first big ideas we came across is that relationships fundamentally seem to stem from need.
Need. How so?
Well, there's this observation, sans besoin, il n'y a pas de relation, basically. Without need, there isn't really a relationship. Now, that doesn't mean neediness in a bad way. It's more that connection often serves some purpose, right? Emotional support, practical help, shared meaning.
That makes sense.
Even, say, a relationship with a higher power. That often comes from a need for guidance or understanding, which contrasts, with the idea that such a power is totally self-sufficient.
That idea of need really hits home, especially when you think about what happens when those needs aren't met.
Right, like loneliness.
Exactly. It's pretty sobering that, long-term loneliness, the lack of strong relationships, is seen as a major factor in depression.
Yeah, the Ministry of Health even stated that. It really highlights how crucial these connections are for just our basic well-being.
Totally. So as we explore this whole world of relationships, it feels right to start maybe at the core, with ourselves.
Precisely. That relationship with yourself is like the bedrock. Everything else builds on it. It really sets the tone for how you interact with everyone.
Okay.
And the source material gets us thinking about some big questions there, like how do you cultivate healthy self-love?
Tricky balance.
It is. And where's that line between real confidence and arrogance?
Yeah.
And how do we keep working on understanding ourselves better, improving, maybe even healing that inner relationship?
And it's fascinating how that internal stuff plays out externally, especially now with so much emphasis on individual freedom.
Oh, definitely.
The source mentioned this interesting tension. More freedom, maybe, but sometimes less security. Like, are traditional bonds loosening up?
That's a key question. How do our relationships handle that dance between our own independence and that deep need we have for connection, for belonging?
So how does the source break this down? Are there pillars or key areas?
Yeah, it highlights 4 main areas that seem to underpin relationships. The first one is our relationship with a higher power or a spiritual dimension.
Okay. What does that involve?
Well, things like having a belief system, learning to accept life's ups and downs, following some kind of guiding principles. These things are seen as helping create a positive inner state within that connection.
That's interesting. And does that personal spiritual side affect how we treat other people?
It seems to. The idea mentioned is that this sense of connection, maybe even a feeling of a constant watchful presence, could encourage more responsibility, maybe more empathy in how we deal with others.
Right. Looking beyond just what I get out of it.
Exactly. The source even talks about our interactions having a kind of transactional quality with that higher power, as opposed to just a purely transactional, profit-seeking approach with people.
Huh.
And it also acknowledges, that even people without a specific religion often feel that deep human pull towards something bigger, that search for meaning.
Okay, so that's the first area. What's the second?
The second is that relationship with yourself, which we touched on. And here, the emphasis is really on self-appreciation, genuine self-acceptance.
Accepting yourself, flaws and all.
Pretty much. Recognizing your own worth, finding some peace with who you are, it's foundational.
Makes sense.
And within that, there's a really crucial point about appearance versus substance.
You mean looking good versus actually being good?
Sort of, yeah. It's not just the image you project, but your inner stuff, your values, integrity, what's really underneath.
Okay.
The source also notes how shared interests are often that first spark, right? Common passions that draw people together initially.
Yeah, that definitely happens. And what about skills? Does being competent matter in relationships?
It seems to contribute. This idea of mutual benefit comes up. I gain from you, you gain from me. When you bring value, whether it's skills or support, it strengthens the connection, fosters interdependence.
So it's not just about liking someone.
No, there's often a practical element too. And this leads to a really interesting concept, attributed sometimes to Ibn Taymiyyah, sometimes to Ali,
Okay.
that in relationships, people can kind of fall into roles. Prisoners, masters, or equals.
Prisoners, masters, equals. Explain that.
Well, it depends on the balance of need and benefit. If you're always the master, always giving, rarely receiving, you might burn out, feel resentful. If you're always the prisoner, constantly needing, rarely offering, you might feel like a burden or unwanted.
So the goal is equality.
Ideally, yeah. Though it's probably more like something you strive for, not a fixed state. An equal exchange.
That ties into authenticity too, right? Being real.
Absolutely. The source really stresses that alignment between your inner self and how you act outwardly.
Because if there's a big gap.
Exactly. If there's a disconnect between who you are inside and the face you show the world, it can lead to things like depression, shame, and that definitely spills over into your other relationships.
Okay, so be authentic. Have a balanced view of yourself.
Right. Navigate that line between humility and self-contempt. Have a realistic view of your strengths, your weaknesses, without a massive ego or constantly putting yourself down.
It sounds like a continuous balancing act.
It really is. The source also mentions the dynamic nature of relationships that ebb and flow, knowing when to be close, when to give space, intimacy without clinging.
There was also that interesting paradox mentioned about intelligence versus ignorance.
Oh, yeah. That was fascinating. The idea that sometimes being really smart can make you hesitate, overthink things.
While someone less analytical might just jump in and succeed.
Kind of, yeah. It makes you wonder when analysis helps and when it just gets in the way.
And what about feeling capable? True confidence versus just self-doubt.
That's explored too, distinguishing real self-belief from that nagging feeling of not being good enough even when you are capable. Self-deprecation.
How do you deal with that self-deprecation?
The suggestion is to consciously look back, acknowledge your past successes, recognize how you've grown, build that internal evidence file, so to speak.
And what about other people's opinions? They can really affect how we see ourselves.
Huge factor. The source points out, wisely I think, that while you can't control what others think, you can manage how much weight you give their criticism.
Learning not to take everything to heart.
Exactly. A crucial skill for maintaining that healthy relationship with yourself.
Where does this self-love or self-hatred even come from?
Often, the source suggests, it traces back to early childhood. Those formative years where you cherished, did you feel secure?
Those significant moments. Parents, siblings, social stuff.
Yeah, they lay the groundwork for how we see ourselves and approach all our future relationships. It's powerful stuff.
It really is. And that idea that constantly putting others on a pedestal can actually shrink your own sense of worth.
Right. It's easy to do. The source even offers that quirky reframe. Imagine negative interactions are like being on a hidden camera show.
To create some distance.
Exactly. A way to not internalize it all so deeply. The bottom line is your main source of worth needs to be internal, not just chasing external applause.
So what are some signs of a healthy relationship with yourself?
Key indicators mentioned include understanding your own limits and rights, and importantly, normalizing mistakes. Seeing errors as human, not as proof of failure.
There's a difference between accepting imperfections and feeling like fundamentally incomplete.
Yes, a very important distinction. Accepting flaws helps you grow. Feeling incomplete can just keep you stuck.
And not being ashamed of just being human.
Right. Having a moderate view of your own value. And I loved this bit. Retaining a sort of childlike spirit, that playfulness, can be a sign of real self-acceptance.
That's lovely. What if you need advice, though? How do you find someone trustworthy?
Good question. The source gives criteria for finding a good mirror and advisor. They need wisdom, sure, but also deep knowledge of you and understanding of the specific subject you need help with.
So not just anyone.
No. Wisdom, knowledge of you, knowledge of the topic, all three.
And sincerity comes up again too, right? Being consistent.
Yes, presenting that consistent face, aligning your inner self with your outer interactions, builds trust, integrity.
Okay, so that covers the self. Now, things get even more complex when we look outward, right? Especially today.
Definitely. The conversation shifts to navigating relationships in this modern world, which is kind of a mix of traditional values and, well, more westernized influences.
How does that play out?
Well, there are contrasts drawn between different philosophical outlooks, like, say, Islamic versus Western views on individual freedom, self-determination. They're not always aligned.
And relativism comes into play, the idea that everything's relative.
Yeah, and how that impacts shared societal norms and, ultimately, our relationships. The source suggests that while individualism feels freeing, it might also lead to more isolation, maybe weaken those traditional family or community structures that used to provide a lot of security.
Is there a term for that kind of blurring of moral lines?
The source mentions moral myopia, like being nearsighted about shared ethics. It can show up as uncertainty about right and wrong or a disconnect between actions and their wider impact.
And then there's globalization, consumer culture.
Huge influences, often shaping our values, our identities in ways we don't even realize. There's a great analogy used,
Which one?
like being on a train. You just kind of get carried along by the prevailing cultural direction without consciously choosing it.
That's a powerful image. The source also contrasts different types of relationships, right? Like contractual versus something else.
Exactly. It draws a sharp line between purely contractual relationships based on agreements, maybe lacking warmth or empathy, and the vital need for compassion, for benevolence, in real human connection.
Is there a danger in being too contractual?
The concern raised is that it can lead to a kind of dehumanization, seeing people as just means to an end rather than individuals with inherent worth.
And how does the modern focus on competence, on meritocracy, fit in?
It's examined critically. Like, do we start seeing people who aren't successful in conventional terms, maybe someone in poverty, as simply lacking competence, ignoring the bigger picture, the systemic issues?
That's a challenging thought.
It is. And even the pursuit of competence, like climbing the career ladder, can sometimes clash with family life, with relationship stability.
Prioritizing work over connection.
It can happen. The sauce even uses the term planned obsolescence, usually for products, metaphorically, suggesting maybe we're becoming quicker to replace relationships than to repair them.
Wow. And technology, social media, how does that change things?
Oh, massively. On the one hand, tech simplifies practical stuff. Communication is easier in some ways.
What?
But it also adds complexity. It can lead to more superficial connections, maybe less sense of real responsibility in maintaining them.
Is interacting online different from face-to-face?
The source suggests it is. Real-world social skills are nuanced, complex. Online can be easier, maybe, but perhaps less deep. Plus, issues like privacy erosion, new social pressures. It's a whole new landscape.
It feels like the basis of connection itself might be changing.
There's a historical take referenced from Algeri, observing how the foundation of social interaction shifted over centuries, from religion to loyalty to chivalry, decency, and maybe now more towards fear and desire.
That's quite a trajectory.
It is. And to make us think about how we react in relationships, there are these little riddles used, like the finger counting one. Just a simple puzzle that shows how easily we jump to conclusions without really thinking. A reminder to pause in our relationships, too.
Okay. And the tractor riddle.
Similar idea. It highlights how dominant cultural stories can shape our perceptions, make us miss the obvious sometimes. We get stuck in a certain way of seeing things.
So be more mindful, basically.
Yeah.
Especially in those more formal contractual interactions.
Yeah. Be aware of what you control, your actions, your responses, versus what's just happening to you. That awareness helps you manage things better.
The conversation also touched on justice versus compassion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Distinguishing between strict, absolute justice and a more compassionate approach. The suggestion is that in relationships, kindness and forgiveness often need to take priority over just sticking rigidly to the rules.
Why is that so important?
Well, there's a reference to a Quranic verse about the Day of Judgment, where everyone's focused on their own situation. It kind of underscores how precious and important our genuine connections are here in this life.
So we have a personal responsibility to be human.
Exactly. To bring humanity into our daily interactions. Simple good manners go a long way. There's a great little story about a plumber.
Oh, yeah.
It just illustrates beautifully how there's often more going on beneath the surface, even in what looks like a purely transactional service relationship. There are complexities.
And our backgrounds, our upbringing, shape how we see things, too. Like the example about consumer habits.
Right. Different norms, different perspectives. Being aware of that, understanding where others are coming from is so crucial for navigating relationships well.
There was also that short anecdote about Prophet Muhammad and his ring.
Yes. Removing his ring while speaking to someone. A simple act, but a powerful symbol of being fully present, giving your attention.
So it's about being present, being aware. How do we break out of just reacting, especially in those contractual cycles?
The key seems to be conscious interpretation. Choosing to see others' actions, maybe more generously, more understandingly, instead of just reacting based on the strict terms of an agreement.
And taking responsibility when things go wrong.
That's a big one. The source suggests the wiser person is often the one who steps up, acknowledges their part, even if it wasn't all their fault. That can open the door to fixing things.
But all this knowledge,
Yeah.
it's useless unless we actually use it, right?
Precisely. The emphasis is huge.
Yeah.
Apply this stuff.
Yeah.
Translate the understanding into how you actually behave day to day.
One technique mentioned was interpreting others positively.
Yeah, consciously choosing a more positive lens for people's actions. It's not about being naive, but it can dramatically improve your own well-being and shift the dynamic.
Okay. And what about reciprocity? Tit for tat.
It's a factor with acquaintances, maybe, but deep friendships. The source calls them more like chemical equations.
Meaning complex and unpredictable.
Exactly. Not just simple exchanges. There are perspectives shared from figures like Ibn al-Muqaffa, Ibn al-Jawzi, on what friendship means, especially now, and also the importance of ending relationships gracefully when needed.
The speakers shared some personal tactics, too, for tricky situations.
Yeah, like mentally adjusting someone's rank or how you think of addressing them just in your own head. A way to manage expectations, maybe diffuse frustration.
Situational awareness seems key throughout.
Absolutely. Understanding the context, adapting your approach, and prioritizing knowing which relationships need the most care and energy based on their nature, their importance in your life.
And that idea of maybe pausing before immediately responding or doing favors if you feel taken for granted.
Right. Just creating a little space sometimes, letting the dynamic rebalance itself. It's a subtle tactic.
Okay, so that's a lot on the dynamics.
Yeah.
Did the source offer, categories of relationships, a way to classify them?
Yes, it outlined 5 distinct classifications, which can be a helpful framework.
Okay, what's the first one?
The living relationship. This is the healthy kind, actively nourished by engagement, shared obligations, kindness, fairness, forgiveness. It's thriving.
Sounds ideal. What's next?
Second is the sick relationship. Here, the main focus is just avoiding blame, not really addressing the core issues.
What do those need?
They need vitamins, as the source puts it.
Yeah.
Things like taking responsibility, fostering real cooperation. Effort is needed to make them healthy again.
Okay, third type.
The harmful relationship. This is where there's a clear imbalance. One person takes much more than they give and often blames the other for not giving enough. It's toxic.
Right, got it. Number 4.
The dead relationship. Marked by an absence of, everything.
Yeah.
No demands, no obligations, no affection, not even conflict, really.
Like a zombie relationship.
Kind of described as a tree relationship. Peaceful, maybe, but no life in it. This is contrasted with that idea of spouses finding calm and repose in each other. Active companionship is missing here.
So stillness isn't always good?
No. The source also cautions here about relationships not aligned with your core values or spiritual beliefs. They likely won't satisfy you in the long run. And it touches on those tricky male-female friendships where romance complicates things.
Referencing religious guidelines on interactions there, too.
Yes, briefly. And then the 5th classification,
Jeez.
the attachment-based relationship, characterized by high intensity but often short-lived and prone to painful endings. We'll definitely dig into attachment more.
Okay, 5 types. That's useful. Now, specifically about men and women interacting today. Any guidance there?
Yeah, the source makes a key distinction first. Being in contact isn't the same as being in a relationship.
What's the difference?
Real relationships involve ongoing, versatile communication that goes beyond just one specific context, like work. It's consistent, adaptable interaction.
And for professional settings?
Guidance is pretty clear. Maintain appropriate boundaries. Speak respectfully. Avoid unnecessary, flirtatious, or overly personal stuff. Keep it professional.
Yeah, there's an analogy.
Yeah.
The bicycle.
Ah, yes. Relationships are like riding a bike. They need ongoing effort, movement to stay upright and balanced. Stop pedaling, things get wobbly, or stop altogether.
So regular relationships, like colleagues, are context dependent.
Often, yes. Deeper connections are the ones that exist outside those specific settings, too.
What about old relationships? Ones that have faded?
The source suggests a choice. Either actively try to revive them with enthusiasm or consciously let them fade by keeping a polite distance. It highlights that maintaining relationships takes active choice.
And distinguishing between permanent and temporary ones.
Right. Different types come with different levels of obligation, different expectations. Important to be clear on that.
What about the number of relationships we can handle? Is there a limit?
The source brings up Dunbar's number here, the idea that there's a cognitive limit to how many stable social relationships we can really maintain.
And the sympathy group.
Yeah, that's the inner circle, maybe around 12 people, who get significant attention, close emotional bonds.
Is having too many superficial connections a bad thing?
It can be a burden. The source contrasts that with the deeper value often found in a smaller circle. and warns against treating friends like resources you only tap into when you need something. Real connection needs reciprocity.
What's Dunbar's estimated maximum?
Around 150 people you can maintain some kind of meaningful connection with, which sounds like a lot, but then you consider.
Your family.
Exactly. The minimum obligated relationships within your immediate and extended family already make up a significant network for most people.
In conflicts, what was the advice about blame?
The wisdom suggested is often to take responsibility, or at least absorb the blame without necessarily throwing it back. It can de-escalate things.
And enemies. Is it inevitable if you stand for something?
The source suggests it might be. If you have principles, not everyone will agree. The key is managing that hostility so it doesn't consume you.
Okay, let's circle back to attachment. You said intense relationships can be short-lived.
Generally, yes. That's the principle presented. High intensity often correlates with shorter duration, and strong attachment can sometimes lead to quite abrupt, painful endings.
The gearbox analogy was vivid.
Right. Anxious attachment being like driving stuck in first gear. Lots of energy, lots of noise, but not much progress, and totally unsustainable, leads to burnout.
Contrasted with the sweetness of real love.
Exactly. Love should ideally be comforting, joyful, not this constant torment of anxiety that unhealthy attachment often brings.
What are the warning signs of attachment issues?
Key things mentioned. Constantly thinking about them when they're absent, excessive focus when they are present, and possessiveness.
Are there specific unhealthy patterns?
Yeah, things like mutual dependency, where neither person feels whole without the other, or one person constantly needing to prop up the other emotionally. These imbalances often sour over time, turning into resentment.
The hand-holding analogy captured that imbalance well.
Didn't it? One person leaning back, totally reliant, instead of two people standing together, mutually connected, and that mental village idea.
Pedestal, altar, hospital, tower.
Right. Signs that your focus on the other person has become disproportionate, unhealthy. It's all about them in different unhealthy ways.
Can this happen even in marriage?
Absolutely. The anecdote about the wife whose whole world revolved around her husband, it's cautionary tale.
The importance of having multiple roles, your own identity.
Crucial. Not defining yourself solely through one relationship, because intense attachment, the source warns, can be destructive, like an enraged bull potentially damaging other parts of your life.
Okay, so shifting gears slightly, what about navigating romantic interest, say attraction to a colleague? Common scenario.
Very common. The source contrasts traditional arranged marriages with the modern desire to get to know someone first.
The juice pitcher analogy was about that, right?
Yeah, suggesting you often don't need a huge amount of interaction to get a basic sense of compatibility. A brief, genuine taste can tell you a lot.
So what are the stages? Attraction happens. Then what?
You reach a point,
Yeah.
decide to maintain contact, cut it off, or just keep it superficial.
And the baiting phase.
Subtle tests to see if interest is genuine or just politeness. If there seems to be mutual attraction, the advice is be decisive.
Meaning?
Either pursue it properly, respectfully, maybe through a lawful path if that's relevant for you, or end it clearly and kindly. Avoid ambiguity.
Especially at work.
Yes, definitely cautioned against disrupting work dynamics. It impacts performance, the environment. Maybe involve a mediator for initial exploration in that context. A practical tip.
Okay, so after initial attraction, there's an exploration phase.
Right. More direct communication or mediated to get to know each other deeper. And again, this leads to a decision. Superficial, cut off, or maintain and build.
Is initial admiration different from real connection?
Very different. The source distinguishes that initial spark from the deeper connection formed during exploration. That's more considered mature interest.
So 3 stages. Admiration, realization, decision. And attachment comes from getting stuck.
Exactly. Getting stuck in admiration, not moving to realistic understanding. The exploration phase is vital because that's when the masks come off, you see the real person.
And commitment helps with patience. Accepting flaws.
In healthy relationships, yes. Commitment fosters patience, acceptance over the long haul.
The mountain and river analogy was beautiful.
Wasn't it? 2 different personalities merging in marriage. Initial friction, maybe, but eventually finding a shared path. It highlights why asking the right questions before commitment is crucial.
Deeper questions.
Yes, about perceptions, dreams, core values, not just surface stuff.
How do you get those deeper answers?
A 3-pronged approach was suggested. Listen to them, hear about them from others you trust, and let them hear about you too. Ask about things like faith, work ethic, money habits, anger management, stability.
Checking their CV or work history was mentioned too.
As a practical indicator of reliability, consistency. And a final, sobering thought. Boredom seems to set in faster in modern relationships, underscores the need for real compatibility and ongoing effort.
Okay, let's talk repair. What are those vitamins for sick relationships?
Two main ones. First, responsibility. Taking ownership of your part, even if the other person isn't there yet. Being patient, supportive.
Like the prophet saying about reconciling with those who cut ties.
Exactly, and thinking about those levels. Neglectful, reciprocal, or benevolent. For sick relationships, the advice is strive for benevolent, go the extra mile. Treat them how you'd want a higher power to treat you.
And the second vitamin?
Cooperation. Proactively initiating kindness, care, offering sincere advice, being patient with criticism yourself, actively building bridges.
And remembering sick relationships often involve blame avoidance.
Right. So address accusations constructively. Focus on understanding solutions, not defensiveness. But also consider the relationship type is repair obligated, permanent, or optional, temporary.
Self-reflection is key here too.
Crucial. Understand your role in the sickness before you can help heal it. What's your contribution?
What about dead relationships? Can they be revived?
The advice was pretty blunt. Cut off contact completely. Create space. Prevent further drain from something that's no longer life-giving.
And for those intense attachment ones, how do you break free?
Get rid of reminders. Avoid contact. Stop dwelling on memories. Interestingly, it noted that sometimes the avoidant person might actually engage more when the attached person pulls back.
But don't fall back into the cycle?
Exactly. Avoid that cycle of obsession and pain. Remember, healthy relationships are between equals, balanced, they evolve. Attachment is rigid, painful, often fear-based.
Let relationships breathe.
Yes. Give them space to find their equilibrium.
The source also talked about how dead relationships can link to status, place,
Yeah.
the social number.
Ah, yes. That idea that your perceived status or number changes depending on where you are, who you're with, and the importance of accepting that.
The anecdotes were funny. The doctor buying eggs, the coach humbled by his mom.
They illustrate it perfectly. Your status isn't fixed. Al-Jahiz's advice about not taking the absolute center spot in a gathering. Same idea, avoid being displaced by someone with higher status in that context.
What determines that social number?
Various things. Religious standing, academic achievement, social connections, basic human dignity, and importantly, moral character.
And moral authority is the most lasting.
That's the suggestion. Good manners, kindness, generosity. That kind of authority tends to endure and be respected across different contexts.
Wow, we've covered so much ground.
We really have. It's a deep dive into what makes us connect or disconnect.
Well, first off, a huge thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this exploration into the complexities of relationship.
Absolutely. Thanks for sticking with us.
I think the big takeaway really is that building and keeping healthy connections, it takes awareness, conscious effort, understanding all these different dynamics.
It's not automatic. It requires work and self-awareness.
So we really encourage you to maybe take a moment, reflect on your own relationships through the lens of some of these ideas we've talked about today.
Yeah, see what resonates, what maybe offers a new perspective.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. How could you apply one of these ideas starting today? Maybe that concept of the shifting social number, or perhaps using one of those vitamins for a relationship that feels a bit sick.
What one small intentional shift could you make right now to foster a healthier connection in your life?
Something to mull over. Thank you again for being with us.
It's been a pleasure exploring this.
And we look forward to our next deep dive together.